Bucharest,
Milano,
Bruxelles,
Berlin,
Lisboa,
Sofia.
Welcome back, it's Hermine. This episode is about protecting our cultural heritage here in Europe. Hey, wait, don't go yet. You might think that's not important or even boring. But we don't always realize how emotionally attached we are to our monuments, our works of art, our traditions. Let me give you an example. When Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, a medieval masterpiece, was ravaged by flames in 2019, the emotional reactions not only of Parisians, but also people outside the French capital and even outside France, came as something of a surprise. While the cathedral was clearly a major Parisian landmark and tourist attraction, many people didn't realize how attached they were to it. It reminded us as Europeans of how emotionally connected we are to our cultural heritage and to the centuries, even millennia, of human settlement that came before us. But our cultural heritage goes way beyond the tourist sites that you see on postcards or in the top 10 on TripAdvisor. It's diverse, often subtle, and sometimes hidden. It's not something you can touch or easily explain. It takes a bit of effort to understand it, and even more so to preserve it. But we are all responsible for it. Professor Peter Fessler, a cultural studies expert at the University of Paderborn, explains the stakes.
So, cultural heritage is, first and foremost, an asset in its own right that should not be questioned. It is part of our identity, part of our essence as individuals, as a society, and also as states. It is quite simply a part of us. It is obvious that cultural heritage must be protected by laws, regulations, and frameworks.
But the digital age presents endless opportunities for distraction. What are we losing when we scroll our way into the future, rather than gazing proudly at the past? Europe's cultural heritage is highly varied. It includes man-made and natural monuments and sites, as well as the art, literature, music, and traditions of past generations. The same way the past generation left us a legacy to learn from and enjoy, we're also in the process of creating a heritage that will leave behind for future generations. Such cultural heritage enriches our lives because it brings people closer, gives us something to share that makes us feel like we belong together, and helps the economy to grow. Everyone has a responsibility to protect this heritage, and the best way to do that is to keep it alive, says Simone Beck, president of the Luxembourg National Commission for UNESCO.
For this to work at all, including in Luxembourg, your tradition has to be practical knowledge that comes from the past, which is kept alive today by a community that supports it, is adapted, and, of course, is passed on to future generations.
So how do we keep it alive? By experiencing it, says Professor Fessler.
Ultimately, cultural heritage needs to be lived. It shouldn't just be something that sits in a museum gathering dust. Cultural heritage must be filled with life in some form, and that is a very, very big challenge.
Romanian member of the European Parliament, Eugen Tomac, who sits at the Committee on Culture and Education, says he knows where to start when it comes to protecting this heritage.
Education is clearly the most important thing when it comes to safeguarding and caring for everything that needs to be protected.
In other words, to help people understand and appreciate the artifacts, monuments and architecture that our ancestors created, people need to know where they came from and why they're significant. And that's not a one-time job, it's an educational project to be carried out across every generation into the future. And who's the best person to teach young people? That's right, schools. But who hasn't seen groups of bored or distracted school kids in museums being shepherded around by tired or even slightly irritated teachers. Barbara Cordero is the director of Hispania Nostra, a Spanish not-for-profit that seeks to protect cultural and natural heritage. She's finding it hard to reach young people, and I guess you'll be able to sense her frustration here.
We try to look for relays, but it's really hard to reach young people. I'm not sure if it's because they've got other interests, or if we need to change the message or how we reach young people.
So, well, yes, the job is hard, which is why educating young people should not exclusively be left to teachers and non-profits. Parents also have a big part to play here, but so does the cultural sector itself. Here's Professor Fessler again.
You have to create low-threshold access. It's about making it accessible in terms of both content and format, so that it doesn't continue to be seen as something of a fancy affair for the traditional, better-educated middle classes, and it must be financially accessible to broad sections of the population, without the need to pay sky-high admission fees or anything.
UNESCO, that's the UN body responsible for promoting peace through education and culture, officially recognizes cultural treasures around the world with a view to ensuring that they're better protected and valued by everyone. It does this by classifying them as World Heritage Sites. This helps to attract tourists from all countries and walks of life. But this can cause another problem. When too many tourists head to the same place, it's not a happy situation for anyone. The tourists have to queue, the monuments can get damaged, and local communities have their daily lives disrupted. Here's Dimitris Plansos, a professor of classical archaeology at the University of Athens.
Αυτό είναι ιδιαίτερα θετικό προφανώς για την οικονομία, αλλά θέτει...
This is undoubtedly very positive for the economy, but it confronts those in charge, and all of us, with responsibilities. The deterioration of monuments, the decline in visitor experience, and the pressure on local communities. These pressures also carry an environmental dimension if we consider problems such as water supply, sanitation, and the capacity of our communities to welcome visitors, particularly in small places such as islands or rural areas of the country.
Public authorities all over Europe are trying to find ways to deal with the problem of massive crowds heading to star sites, like the Acropolis. Protecting cultural heritage means better managing these massive influxes of visitors. It also means promoting alternative tourism, encouraging them to visit lesser-known sites. That's all well and good in theory, but it's tricky to put into practice. Promoting smaller sites is a lot more complex and time-consuming, says Elisabetta Faggiana. This Italian entrepreneur is the brains behind Unexpected Italy, an app that offers off-the-beaten-track travel experiences with itineraries tailored to individual profiles and preferences.
Obviously, going to a city in a country like Italy and really trying to promote everything there is to promote in this city, while also trying to profile it to understand who might like it and who might not, clearly requires more effort.
But this effort is well placed, she says. And in a world where algorithms use your taste and behavior to determine the content you see, tailor-made travel might just be a smart step forward.
If you promote 100 sites to 100 people, tourism would probably be more spread out, and we definitely see better quality. Tourism travellers wouldn't just pick a place because everyone has seen it, so I should see it too. They'd pick somewhere based on what they're into personally. This obviously means that travellers need to be more aware of this, and we need a public, collective effort to support this shift.
Professor Lyudmil Vagalinsky, from Bulgaria's National Archaeological Institute with Museum, thinks archaeologists should get involved too. He's the head of the dig at Herakleia Sintika, an ancient city in southwestern Bulgaria. From the 4th century BC to the 6th century AD, it was a major economic, cultural and religious center for the region. The archaeologists there have created a platform called Archaeological Bulgaria to promote their daily work. Media coverage has led to more people visiting their website. And
And it works. Tourists come, and when tourists come, the municipality is happy, the people are happy, and we are happy too. When foreigners flood in, locals start to understand, well, if these people are coming from such a long way away, then this site must be important, and they start coming too. That's what happened in Heraclea Sintica. In a relatively short time, thanks to our efforts and the support we finally received from the municipality, after 2015, the state rediscovered us and we started receiving central funding. Without this, you can't work on such a scale and uncover so much. If people come, you've succeeded.
as we all know, money talks, and money doesn't grow on ancient stones. So how can we pay for the preservation of our cultural heritage? The private sector has invested in cultural heritage projects in the past, but often just to make money. But this isn't always possible, so public funding is essential. However, culture is rarely considered a state priority, says German expert Peter Fessler.
Another very important point is the role of state funding. It's a classic pattern. When funds are tight, the first thing to be cut is culture. Not so much the established cultural institutions, but especially the smaller, less conspicuous, subcultural institutions and activities. And here I think it is very important that we as a society remain attentive and look very closely at what is to be cut or restricted, and that we stand up for it.
With so many competing uses for a country's limited funds, how to make the case for culture? Defense spending comes at a price, as does the development of energy infrastructure. Well, with so many big-ticket items on the European budget, what's left for preserving our cultural heritage? This is why some member states turn to the European Union for help and end up heavily reliant on EU support. Portugal is one such country, according to Catarina Valença Gonçalves, an expert in cultural heritage revitalization. She's concerned about the Portuguese authorities' lack of commitment in this area.
Devemos fazer essa pergunta. No dia em que não houver fundos europeus,
We must ask ourselves this question. On the day that European funds dry up, if European funds were no longer available, what would Portugal's cultural heritage policy look like? We keep putting off the deadline. There will still be some, there will still be some, there will still be some.
And Portugal is not the only country in this situation. But at least there's European money available for such important, if often neglected work. The bloc supports the cultural and creative sectors across Europe through initiatives like the Creative Europe program, which aims to promote cross-border cultural cooperation and networks. Brussels really wants member states to work together to promote cultural heritage and cultural exchange, and it's using programs like the European Capitals of Culture to help with this. Of course, mistakes and failures happen in relation to cultural heritage. Our museums are filled with cultural treasures that were purchased or worse, looted during wars or periods of occupation. People have been talking about how to deal with stolen art for years, but right now in some places in Europe, they're talking not just about restitution, but prevention. Some museum curators are really worried about how to stop looting during wars. This is especially a problem in Ukraine right now. Vidmantas Besaras, the director of the Lithuanian Department of Cultural Heritage, says they're taking lots of steps to stop heritage items being stolen if war comes to Lithuania's shores.
Our staff attends training courses and seminars because the illicit trafficking of cultural goods is linked to war. We are seeing stolen and sometimes unknown cultural treasures being transported from Ukraine to Western Europe and Arab countries. A significant amount of these treasures is seized in Lithuania. We must be prepared for this possibility. It's a question of preparation. I hope we won't have to wait for that moment to arrive.
He says they're also marking their most valuable items with the blue shield symbol to show that they are protected by the Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in Armed Conflict. When we first chatted about this podcast on Tomorrow's Europe, my colleagues at Euranet Plus and I, we realized that Europe's core values and beliefs are currently being challenged around the world. Our values are closely linked to our cultural heritage. It helps us understand who we are, where we come from, and also where we want to go in the future. We're proud of our arts, literature, music, performance, and handiwork as local communities, nations, and Europeans. They remind us that we've always valued creativity and freedom of expression, hard work and the pursuit of excellence, community life and the pleasure of partaking, reflection and beauty. And that's why cultural heritage isn't something we should just leave in the past. By keeping it alive and constantly reclaim it for ourselves, we can continue to use it to stoke an ongoing, constructive debate on the values that underpin our society. There's so much at stake here. So if you still think cultural heritage is boring, it's time to think again. The interviews from across Europe have been realized by my colleagues from the Euranet Plus network. Zina from German media AMS, Jean-Claude from Luxembourgish radio 100,7, Stefan, my colleague from Radio Romagna, Esteban from Es Radio Castilla y León, Nikos and Marianna from Greece's Sky Radio, Asia from Milan's Radio 24, Eleonora from Bulgaria's public radio BNR, Alexandre from Portuguese radio Renascença, and Auguste from Lithuanian Žinių Radijas. Thank you all for your precious work and collaboration. Next week, we'll move on to a new subject about the challenges of adapting to climate change, starting with health. It's going to bite and sting. If you like this podcast, share it with friends, leave a review, or suggest it in online communities.